gentlemen, I have Adam Lee here. How you doing, man?
What's up? How you doing, bud?
Doing good. That looks like a nice kitchen that you're in. Spending a
Yeah, I'm
lot of
good.
time in there playing music, or
Yeah, this is the kitchen slash office.
yeah, close to the coffee pot.
Exactly. That's a primary concern, man.
So you're doing a lot of streaming stuff and a lot of recording.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of writing mostly, for sure. That's like that's been keeping me very occupied during these strange days.
It's very weird, but it's an extremely good way to take up your time and to create something very
Absolutely.
productive with this. It's kind of an opportunity for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, it's been. I was just talking to a friend the other day. Like, it's very cool. I mean, if we're gonna find some silver lining in this, it's very cool to me to see like all the creative stuff people are doing. I mean, sort of like creative types, but also just like maybe not so creative type people that are just getting to like really fun making art, singing songs, like all this sort of stuff. Like I love to see that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
me too.
that's
That is
been
definitely a silver lining in all of this, is that people are, they're doing things like, things around the house too, that we just don't have time to do usually, like, and
really.
somewhat creative things like building shelves or whatever it may be. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So are you going to have like a couple albums worth by the time this is all done, or what do you
And
think?
I don't know, man. Um, so what I've been doing, like right when this thing started, I had decided to do this sort of like song commission thing. Um, I just put it out there like on social media or whatever. It's just like, if you want a song, hit me up and let me write a song for you. So it could be about whatever, your dog, your wife, your kid. I wrote a song about a dinosaur. Um, but so I put that out there just to see. Like, it seemed like a fun way to sort of like stay occupied.
Mhm.
Um, so I've been doing that a bunch, and yeah, I mean, like I've written a bunch of songs, and I mean, there's some silly ones for sure.
Yeah,
But then there's a handful that are like, I'm pretty proud of. I mean, I'm proud of all of them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But
Even the silly
um,
ones.
yeah, but there's some that like definitely like may need to work their way into the set. Um, you know, whenever we play shows in 5 years or whatever. So,
Yeah, shit. Yeah. I think that's such a cool idea, man. That is so cool. They basically just give you like a an idea and certain things that they want in the song, and you
yeah, it's
just
been
work it
sort of
out.
open ended, man. Like, cause like I just wanted it to be open to anybody. You know what I mean? So like they can just give me a subject, or maybe they have a song title. I've had a couple of my musician buddies like send over maybe like half done lyrics that they're like, man, I've had this for like however many years and I can't do anything with it. Like, can you do something with this? And so that's been fun to sort of uh, like remote co-write some stuff, and then also I had a friend send over sort of like some poetry that I was trying to put to music. I don't know, it's been cool, man. Like,
Cool.
it's been fun, but it's also been like a great exercise. Like, some of that stuff where people are providing lyrics is really interesting to me, because it's um, like it's very interesting to like try to write. It's so not my natural cadence, whatever this other person is writing, but it's like cool to try to like work around it. It's been like going to the gym some days,
Right.
which is
It's a
awesome. Like, I love,
mental
like,
workout.
absolutely, man. So it's keeping me relatively in shape, so to speak. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And it's almost like a cover in a way, right? Because you're taking somebody else's poetry and you're shaping it in your own way,
Sure.
maybe adding, subtracting a bit, but keeping it,
Right.
you know, lyrically the same. That's really cool. I like that idea a lot. And that brings me to like one of my first questions I try to ask everybody, is how you usually go from a song, or like from an idea to a finished song. And I know that that differs a lot from artist to artist. So I try
Sure.
to touch on that in these things, So
Um, I mean, it usually, I don't know. It will often, it starts one of two ways. I'll either have like a lyrical idea, and it'll just be a line or a turn of phrase or just an image or something. And I've got a bunch of those just in my phone. Just if I think of something, I make these notes. Um, and then other times it's, I have like a melody idea, and so that'll be a note in my phone. Um, and that's sort of the trick, man. Right there is like, how do you get it? I was talking to a buddy of ours last night about this. Like, that for me, that's the hardest part of writing songs. Like not like the editing and the rewrites and stuff. And I do a fair amount of that. That's the hard part is like having this little thing, and then like breathing some life into it. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I always look at it like sort of like I have to find like my way into the song, even if I have like maybe say I have a couple verses even of a thing like there's got to be something like I mean you could just write words in melodies and that's fine, but like yeah I have to find like a way in. Like it's not necessarily like an angle like in a lot of that old country music. There's like a little turn of phrase or a little pun, and like that's absolutely a way in. But there's so many other ways to get into a song and to find kind of breathe some life into it. And then usually for me, once I kind of find that little trick, that little thing that unlocks the door, then it's like, then I'm like, then I can like full speed ahead.
The door's wide open at that point.
Yeah. But
that is really cool. Yeah.
That's the hard part, I think.
Yeah. Just unlocking the door. And then once it swings open, you have access to whatever is hiding in the ether out there.
Absolutely.
I like the way you put that because I've never really thought about it quite like that, but it makes sense. And it also makes sense specifically to the way that you write, or the way that, I was listening to your music this morning, getting ready for this call. And I was like, it makes sense because it feels like each one is its own entity and story and revealed in a certain way. It has its own life that you found, or that you breathe into it.
I try to, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we all try to do, is make stuff that is important in its own way, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah. That
but dude, even
you can feel it in your music, you can
this is
feel
the
that.
fun thing too, like with writing some of these songs, even like some of these kind of like lighter songs I've been doing lately, like even if it's not like important or whatever, like how cool is it to like on a good day you could sit down at the desk or whatever, and in a few hours or whatever, like I made something like that wasn't there before, and that's the best feeling. You know what I mean? Like that's
and that is important. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's its own, has its own significance for sure.
Sure.
Especially if you write a song for a kid about a dinosaur. That's a big deal.
Yeah. That was for a grown up. Absolutely. For a grown up.
That sounds like something I would ask you to do. Yeah.
I did write a song for a kid though. I wrote like a punk rock anthem for a kid. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, if everybody's being creative, like my friend Dagan, the drummer of Murder by Death, and his wife, they wrote this album for their dog that's all punk rock songs about their little wiener dog.
I love that.
And then they made a music video and they put it on their Facebook, and
Dude,
they had all of their friends,
that stuff thrills me. Like I love people just getting into this sort of like not niche, but like just get idiosyncratic, just kind of like quirky, like kind of esoteric stuff. Like fuck it, write your Dachshund punk rock record. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. So he did it in his little shed out back. He did the drums, bass, and guitar, and then he sang a couple of them, and then asked his other friends and bands to sing.
Cool.
So it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those sorts of things that inspire me to do this too. Like
sure.
Talk to my friends, my old buddies that
absolutely
super interesting people that have really interesting lives, and it's fun. It's fun to do creative things,
Well, that's the thing, man. It's like, I mean, there's a million things to do. Even stuck at home, I've been trying to clean my tiny house like for 2 months now. It's like getting there.
But there's priorities,
Well, it's cool to see people like digging into whatever, like, whatever ideas maybe been like in the back of your mind. Like, man, it'd be fun to do like an interview show or a podcast or whatever. Like I've had a few buddies like just. People are just reaching out like wherever maybe their natural inclination is, and I love to see people doing maybe not what they traditionally do, but getting creative and being really good at it. That's like also super cool.
Yeah, that's the fun thing. We all get to see each other expand a little bit here and reach out to, not necessarily like you were saying, not necessarily things that we do on the day to day, but it inspired me to reach out and try this because
I love it, man.
It's funny how it's something was always there. It was always available for a long time now.
Yeah.
and I never thought of it.
Yeah.
But you know, I got canned from work, so I was like, well, I got a little time on my
Yeah. There you
hands,
go. Yep.
and you know, and I miss all my friends, and it's something that I kind of neglected over time,
Uh-huh.
and I just got caught up in my own life
Sure.
and work and being really tired after work. So I was like, you know, lifting tires all day. I was like,
Right.
don't do that now. I can just
Yeah.
I can use my brain.
I love it, man.
But so I wanted to ask you, how did you do you remember like the beginning of when you decided like, hey, music is what I want to do full on? Was that something, was that like a light bulb moment when you were
Oh,
young, or
100%. Yeah. Like I always played music growing up. Like I was always singing since I was a kid. I started as a drummer. So like when I was playing in bands, I was drumming in bands mostly. Um, and I don't know. You know, I played in bands in high school and buddies around, you know, we would play and like record little crappy EPs or whatever. But I do remember like when I was, it was really a light bulb moment. Like I was 19, I was drumming in this band. It was the first time I'd like gone on tour, like, and you know, in like gone out of state to play shows. And it wasn't like, we had like a week-long tour. And it wasn't the first day, but I think it was the first day we did a show, slept wherever. And it was the second day we're like back in the van going even further away from home. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I know what I knew like by definition what a tour was and traveling, play shows. But like, is that second day sitting in the van, it was like, oh, you could just do this. It was like massive. And I was like, oh, I'll just do this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was wondering, because a lot of people, especially like the touring, I can see that. I've had a similar feeling when I was about that age too. When I there was the first time I drove across the country with my friend. We weren't playing music. We were just
Mhm.
we were gonna move to Minnesota, and when we got there, we were like, this is not for us. So let's just keep driving. So we
Okay.
drove to the East Coast and back, and then after that, it was like that seed was planted of travel.
Sure.
And then I had to
Absolutely.
figure out, you know, then we started the band, and I was like, oh, we can see all of our favorite bands for free if we just open. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah. There's all kinds of perks, man.
I was like, and they feed you a little bit, so that's
Yeah.
done.
Yep. Exactly, man. I mean, the travel is probably my absolute favorite thing. Like the biggest benefit to me from playing music, to get to go so many places, and big or small, or super foreign, or super sort of like normal little tiny town or whatever. Like, but so many places you wouldn't have an opportunity to go, or maybe you wouldn't think to go, that music can take you to. And then it's like, all right, I guess I'm going to sit in the corner of this karaoke bar in Iowa. Okay, I would have never been here, but here I am.
Yeah.
And I love that stuff, man.
Yeah. It can open doors like just like you were saying, that you would never have thought you'd be there doing this thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. We played in Norway, and
Hmm.
they were like, okay, you're going to play this festival, but you also have to play this other thing. And we're like, oh, whatever. Yeah, just we'll show up. We'll do it. And it was at this massive old hotel,
Love it.
and it was during the daytime, and behind us was the fjord. And in front of us, it was like a it was a business meeting of all of these, like the top executives of these big corporations in Norway, and they were
Hmm.
having a luncheon and meeting, and we were the entertainment. We had no amps; it was all acoustic, and there was like 50 of the richest people in Norway right in front of us, and then and you know, it's so surreal, and we
You got to put out a tip buck in that situation.
yeah, well, they yeah, I think they paid us pretty good actually
Yeah.
for that, but yeah, we should have done that too. But so it was on their lunch break. They were having their lunch, and it was very formal, like, come out here at this time, stand here, and the band will be here. And you know, we're rowdy, half
Yeah.
drunk.
This is with Flask.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
I can't imagine dudes in suits like cutting up meat, and then you're just like,
yeah. Well, they yeah, it was just like that. They were very, very formal people watching us, and the topper was that they were like, Larry and his flask, all of this stuff in their language. And then they said, Larry and his flask. And then they went, and then there was a lady with a bucket of roses. And she came up to us and she said, Jamin Marshall, and handed a rose to me. And I took it and everybody clapped. And then she went down the line, Ian Cook, and handed a rose to him and everybody clapped. And that was one of those things. And then I, showed my class after they went back inside, we went down to the fjord and I jumped in with just my underwear. And
yeah, there you go.
But yeah, that was one of those times, I'm sure that you have something that popped into your mind on tour or a show that's like strange or bizarre or beautiful. I try to bring those moments up too, if you can think of something like that. Yeah.
Well, when you were talking about, this is sort of a mix of the two. This is just last fall. We were going to play. We were heading out to Colorado when I saw you, and but Brooke Blanche and I we booked shows from like I think we met in Tennessee, and then did shows out there and shows back. But we had like ostensibly just a house show. The worst part is always that drive from Kansas City to Denver because there's nothing. You know what I mean? Like.
Flat.
I think at one point there was a coffee shop in Hays, Kansas where people were doing shows or something, but there's not much. It's just it's kind of a terrible, awful drive. But we ended up booking like a house show in Abilene, Kansas. And cool house show. This guy said, my buddies love this kind of music and we'll bring people out and it'll be fun. And we've done plenty of house shows or private parties or whatever. So that sounded great. Turns out through whatever happenstance, I mean, it was like a day or two before the show. The bank or whatever the guy worked for, like had they had acquired this historical property, which was like to look at it, it's like the whatever manor. It's like the Addams Family house. And he's like, hold up, we're gonna do the show here. And dude, it was wild, man. Like you roll up and it looks like the Addams Family house. There's like a tower and stuff. And I figured it was just, the facade would have been like that. But then you open it up and the whole thing had been restored, like Victorian furnishings and carpets and the crazy wild wallpaper. And so we just sat in there next to like a baby grand piano and played a show for people like with hors d'oeuvres looking at this house. Apparently it was the first house in Abilene, Kansas. And it was wild, dude. I mean, they had a plaque and everything. And anyways, that's where we did our show and sang at people.
Yeah. That is cool. That is really cool. I do like the Victorian style of house, but usually when you do house parties in those type of houses, they're falling in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because there's been a couple of times, once in Madison where the floor was buckling.
Oh, sure.
It was like bouncing, and it was in.
We played a bunch of those like old like punk rock houses like early on, and I absolutely remember one where it's like that you get enough people in that room and you're like, man, we're 2 or 3 floors up. Like I hope that this would go a certain way.
Yeah, the basement's a long ways down.
Yeah.
Luckily, that didn't happen with us. There was 2 that stick out in my mind. Once in Bend, Oregon, where that was happening, and it was a good give to the floor, about like that much, and that's enough to feel like, okay, we're all 200 of us are going down. Yeah. But luckily, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened.
It happened at the next show. Wasn't
it that one? Yeah. It's amazing all of these things that we survive and they become funny stories.
Sure. Yeah. There's yeah, that's very true.
That we can laugh about instead of, a tragedy.
Yeah.
But
yeah. There's immediacy in the early days. There's some pretty dumb decisions, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Thank God. So can you remember, does something pop into your mind when I say like the craziest show, or perhaps something that was like really sketchy or anything like that? I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't don't know. It's. I mean, it all kind of runs together. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
being out there, like being out on the road, like it's like you, you're like these gunslingers or whatever. What would be weird to somebody back home, or even would be weird to you if you were back home, and if you went to a show at your local spot and were like, what is it? Once you're out, I feel like when like time is different out there, and like whatever would be bizarre is so the norm. Like bizarre is the norm.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, I mean, like it's sort of hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, plenty of crazy stuff. I've absolutely, I had an old friend who came out to a show. First time I'd seen this dude in a long time, and smash cut to like the end of the night, and the owner of the venue is like beating this dude up in the street. That was an uncomfortable situation. I didn't really know whose
Yeah.
side I was on in that.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's yeah, I mean, stuff like that sticks out to me, like kind of the real bad stuff. But I mean, the real good stuff. Hopefully, the real good stuff you can remember some of. But sometimes there's too many bubbles.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of bubbles in there, and there's a lot of it's not just the booze, but it's also the exhaustion. And also,
100%.
a lot of it was just being so tired that something will happen and you'll just be like, unless you get in the right situation with your bandmates and they start talking about it or prompted, and then it brings back this flood of memories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, especially the road dogs that have done tons and tons of shows. When you give that prompt, it takes a minute, and usually it's like, well, it's just like a series of years rolled into like this unbelievable things happening. So you can't necessarily access it. I like to ask it anyway, and sometimes people that haven't played as many shows will have a really, really good story because it's still at the top there before it gets buried beneath all of the.
There's just too much insanity. You're totally right though. Like when I talk to old buddies, or my buddy Ryan Land, who played drums with me for years, is my neighbor. And like he'll bring up stuff. He's like, "You remember this?" And I won't. But then like he's reminding me of a lot of great stories. It's pretty good up here. He's got a lot of that stuff tucked away. So yeah, it comes right back. But yeah.
It's hard to access. I totally get it.
3 cups of coffee, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's another thing is like it's been really, really cool to talk to everybody and be like reminiscing pardon me, about the flask and about traveling and all these things that did happen. And I forget, there's been a lot of things that I've done that I just can't remember. Sometimes, people are like, "Hey, do you remember this time that you did this shit?" And I was like, "No, but I'm sorry."
Yeah, right. Well, it's often nice to be reminded of some of that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like I'm in a much better state of mind for the most part. However, there's, speaking of like traveling, and that's a highlight for sure. But there was definitely times where I was like in the van for what felt like forever. And, the farts and the chaos and you're just like, I got to a point where I hated that. And that's not good, And then I listened to an interview of Fugazi.
Uh-huh.
And Ian MacKaye was saying like that's the part he's gonna miss the most is the van rides.
Yeah.
And like maybe their van rides weren't 25 hours long usually because they're on the East Coast, but But I thought it made me appreciate it in a different way. It made me think.
Well, I mean, there's
I'm
that
lucky,
camaraderie or brotherhood or whatever that it's like that's pretty hard to replace. When it's good, man, it's great, and that's really it's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more people you cram into a van, like there's just more variables. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it's better or worse. It's just different. But I've done so much. I've toured with a band a fair amount, but I've done even that was like a 3-piece or maybe a 4-piece band. But the majority of what I've done is like solo touring, and so that's either just me, or I'll go out with like a songwriter buddy. So it's just me and one other dude, and like that's like I said, there's less variables. So you kind of just who you're getting in the car with.
Yeah.
And you know, like last fall was interesting actually when I saw you, because it was like I was out with Joe Mascherette from the Tillers, and then I was out with and this is like back to back. It's just the way it got booked. So I was with Joe, and then I was with Brooke Blanche from the Cubes, and then I was with my buddy Justin Wells from Lexington, Kentucky, and that was like back to back. So it was like the same format. It was like me and one other dude in a car, but like wildly different personalities. And so that was it. I got like sort of, it was like a deconstructed band tour.
Yeah.
I got all that different, you know, all those different personalities, but just one at a time.
One at a time. Cool. Yeah, that's really cool, man. Do you book your own stuff, or do you have a booking agent?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple, depending on where I'm, the region, you know, I've got people that help me out. But I do a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it myself, or, you know, it's people sending me emails, and it's like, all right, well, let's figure out how to, you know, make this show happen.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever done any shows in Canada?
Not in a long time. I feel like I played one show in Canada, and this is back like when I was playing drums, so years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I've been to Canada quite a few times, and I love it up there. But I've not played up there.
Cool. Well, it's expensive. So
that's what I've heard. Yeah,
prohibitively expensive sometimes, and
yeah.
I mean, what we would do is because my brother and I are Canadian as well, so we're dual citizens.
Okay.
So it gave us that advantage. It made it that much easier to get into the country. However, Dallin made it difficult. So
yeah.
We would get in easy, and then
I've heard they're particular about who they will or won't let in.
It used to be a lot easier, and then the passport thing came in, and then after that, it was like if you've ever had a DUI or any sort of, I think even maybe some misdemeanors and definitely felony charges that have been since expunged, it still counts against you. So it's like any DUI, which with the rock and roll world is a lot of folks.
That's the example I've heard most often from people.
Yeah. So
that like can't go to Canada for that.
Yeah, like 7 years or something.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
And sometimes it's longer. If that particular border guard's having a bad day, they can still see your record, and once you're blacklisted, it's really, really hard to get through. So sure. Towards the end of it, you know, of touring with Dallin, he just would stay in a hotel room. It's a lot easier to get into Europe than it is Canada, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but we would just tour all the way across. Once we got in Canada, we were like, okay, we're in. Yeah. We're not going to jump back and forth.
Yeah, just
across
stay
the border. Stay up and drive across, which is a lot. Talk about nothing in between.
Yeah,
there's a few.
The whole sort of like the Midwest section of Canada, I do not know as well. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time. Like my dad is from Seattle, so we spent a lot of time. We would drive up to Vancouver when I was a kid all the time, and then most recently, me living in the Midwest, like heading up to Toronto or something like that. You know what I mean? Like that's. Yeah. But the rest of it, sort of the other parts, I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. It's like our plains, but much wider. So
right.
You know, from essentially the edge of Alberta over to Ontario is fairly just flat and not a lot. You know, there's some good cities in there, but and there's a lot of good, you know, music fans. But getting there is the hard part. And we toured a lot up there when it was like basically almost $5 a gallon for gas.
Oh, yeah.
So you break even if you're lucky and just have a good time.
Yeah.
This is a lot of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's a lot of it.
But I remember when I met you, the first time we came to, I can't remember if it was Lawrence or Kansas City. I think it was Kansas City.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But we came in and we had our friend Greg Doctolero with us, and he was like, we met you and you were sitting on like the stoop out front, and we were getting to know everybody and just hanging out, drinking, smoking. Uh-huh. And Greg was looking at you like this, like, I think I know that dude. And I was like, how do you know him? How would you guys never met any of these people. I've never met anybody. Yeah. And then he's like, I think he was a drummer in a band in Hawaii because he was from Hawaii.
Oh, dude.
And I was like, No way. Really? And then like he started talking, and apparently that's how he knew. I don't know I can't remember the name of the band because he said it.
Oh man, I forgot about that, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I lived in Hawaii for 2 years, like senior year of high school, and then the year after, and yeah, I played in a few bands out there. I mean, it's not a massive scene, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, played drums in a few bands out there. That's wild, man. I'd forgotten
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, he was tripping out too because it was something like I think it might have been like one of the first punk rock bands that he saw, or you know, the
Uh-huh.
early introduction to live music, I believe, and that was you. So
Dude.
it was a big, like, he was like really tripping, and I was like,
Well, I mean, it's so random. You know, like, and I'm sure this is a similar thing has happened to you. I've absolutely run into people, years later, we're like lifetimes later, and it's like when you can put it together, if you can actually put it together and figure it out, like it's pretty mind blowing. But it's sort of also not.
Yeah.
It's sort of also not surprising, you know, like the nature of this thing. But every time it happens, it's bizarre.
It happens all the time, and I think that I'm still not used to it. I still freak out. I still like this is incredible, you know. And my wife Victoria, she's like, well, you should be used to this by now. You know, these coincidences occur all the time.
Yeah.
The whole small world effect that happens, and you're
Sure.
like, I love it. I can't believe it sometimes. When we first met, Willie T and Tommy V and Soda, that all happened around the same, like right at the same time, basically, and it was very, very strange coincidence. Like the Soda was hanging out with this girl that we used to like stay at her house back in the, like when we were just doing the punk rock shit in Medford, and she and like and he they were living in Austin together at one point, and she used to play him our old shitty recordings in their car, and they'd cruise around town and whatever. And I had just found Soda's music like a week before, Soda and the Million Piece and his Million Piece band on YouTube. And so I was tripping out because I saw this dude across the barn, and I was like, I think that's Soda. And I just found out about his music, and then he came up to us and was like, used to hang out with Tessa and blah blah blah, and you know, it was just like one of those things, like, how the hell.
That's some serendipity right there, bud.
Yeah, and that whole night was like that. Yeah, that was the first Willie T Farm barn show that he threw. And yeah, we met him at an open mic in Stockton, and I thought he was a fucking lunatic.
I mean, that might be an accurate assessment.
Yeah, I thought he was crazy, and my brother immediately just fell in love and was like, "Yeah, we'll come play your show in the barn and whatever." And I was like, "You really want to go to this psycho's barn?"
Yeah. You know, and go one or two.
It was amazing. I was wrong. Yeah, it was a life-changing event.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that, you know.
Have you had Soda on here yet?
No, not yet, but I'm gonna. Yeah, I'm gonna get
that guy. That guy's got some stories.
Yeah,
and he'll come off him. You know, he cultivates this air of mystery.
I know that's his thing, right?
That's you know. So he might tell you some stories.
I you know, whether or not the story's embellished, I love a good story. So
100%, man. Yeah.
I love traveling with that dude because he'd be like, you know, back in the day when we were in Wax, we do this or that or whatever. He's like, he told me this one story where they had this like megaphone or something, and they were sleeping at a gas station, and they would play this game with the other people that would come to the gas station in the middle of the night. Somebody would pull up to pump 1, and they would like hang out of the like van kind of hidden with the megaphone and be like, pump 1, there's a problem. Could you move to pump 5? And then they pull her and they'd be like, oh, sorry. Could you pull back to pump 1?
Oh, yeah.
And like, yeah, that sounds like that makes sense.
Sounds accurate.
The Wax days. Yeah.
Now that's one of those dudes that I've just run into him so many random times. And yeah, I haven't seen him in a little while. But there was a while there, you know, there was a period of time there where it's like, you know, I saw him in Kansas City all the time. Then I moved to Chicago, and then he was up in Chicago living. So we would see each other all the time. Yeah, we've just crossed paths in some interesting places.
Yeah. Are
I
you?
think the first time I met that dude was maybe in Minnesota.
Yeah.
We just were at the same show, or like I don't even know if we were playing or what it was, but yeah, I've seen that guy in a lot of random states.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense. He's like that. He's a tumbleweed.
yeah, truly.
Where is he now? Chicago still?
I don't know, man.
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure. I mean,
Guess I'll figure it out.
last I heard he was in Chicago, but yeah, I don't know. We were yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've talked to him. I'm down in Northern Kentucky now, and I've talked to him since I moved down here. And we've played shows, not around here, but we've set up shows since I've been down here in Indiana and Illinois and stuff. And I mean, like you said, the guy's a tumbleweed.
Yeah.
I mean, does he ever really live anywhere?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think
I
so.
mean, vampires are just always from Transylvania, I think,
That's
even
true.
if they moved elsewhere.
Yeah. And they just find a new helper.
Yeah.
Drive the caddy. Yeah, I'd love to talk to him again. Definitely. It's been too long. So yeah, reconnecting with everybody is sweet. And I like to kind of leave these conversations open to whatever comes up, you know.
Absolutely.
I try to come up with some questions, but really it's just good to catch up with you.
Well, that's great, man. I love this, man. Like, you know, that's something I've been doing in this whole quarantine situation. Also, it's been interesting. I've been reconnecting with a lot of people. You know, not necessarily by design, but it's just the way it's happened. And it's been, you know, again, if we're gonna like look for a silver lining, that's been rad. That's been fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. It makes me, because I was honestly like lost in the world of being a mechanic.
Yeah.
It was just like, you know, there was rare events where I would come out to shows to see. Like when I saw you, it was one of those moments. Actually,
It was one of those. I didn't even know you were out there.
Nobody,
And then,
I didn't know you guys were there. You know.
I mean, I think I was sleeping in the car. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there was a show going on, but like we'd already played, and I was just trying to get some rest. And guys came and banged on the window.
Yeah, that was one of those times. Straight up, I was in there to see Grant Saban, my buddy. He's from Colorado Springs, so way down south.
Yeah.
And so he was up there, and we went up after work. So I was already really beat, but came up there. We were talking to him outside, and he was having a smoke. And I look over, and there's this huge dude, big guy, sitting in a chair out back, like had his smoke, and he was like, you know, big cowboy hat and everything. And I looked over, and I was like, Brooke?
Yeah.
And he just gets up, and he looks at me like, who are you at first?
Yeah.
And then he just runs over and picks me up. And my wife had never met him.
Oh yeah, like, there you go. There's an introduction for you.
Yeah, and he just like, Draven, and like swinging me around, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then we sat there for about half an hour talking.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, you know, Adam's here. And I was like, what, you didn't bring that up beforehand? And then we went and knocked on the car. I think our dogs were, he mentioned there was dogs barking in the car. And I was like, oh, yeah, those are our dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we woke you up, dragged you into the bar, and made you drink.
That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. It was good to get up out of that car, man. I think that was like talking about that drive. I think that was the thing. I think we had like driven overnight Kansas City to Denver, and then like got up and had to play that day, like 3 p.m. or something for that festival. So yeah, I was just wiped, but you gave me a little boost of energy seeing you. That was such a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, man, that was so cool. Definitely one of those times where you're like, everything, like, of course, you know, after it happens, you're like, this is crazy. I can't believe this is happening. And then you're like, well, you know, it's that thing, like, where everybody knows everybody by association, just a couple degrees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in our world.
Especially in this realm, you know, it's a lot smaller than we realize sometimes.
Yeah, it should be a given that we all know each other, but
yeah,
it's still cool.
It is almost surprising when you talk to people sometimes, and like you're like, oh, you probably know this person, and they don't. That's almost more striking. It's like, really? Like,
yeah, like there's bands that we never played with that it just doesn't make sense that we never. And sometimes people are very confused. They're like, you've never played with that band? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, well, maybe I'm not sure. Maybe we did
Right.
at some point.
Yeah.
Like that bar that we were in that night that we saw each other. I was like telling Victoria the whole time, like, I've never been to this bar. And then we're talking to Grant, and he's like, yeah, we played here together that one night, like a few years
Right.
ago out here. And I was like, oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay. It was one of those things where like I completely somehow wiped that show out of my memory. And he was like, it was a really bad turnout and there was sound problems. And I was like,
Oh, see,
okay.
that's just you're disassociating your brain. Your brain. You have a person now. There's one personality that's just all the shitty shows. You're just real grumpy.
And it's buried back there. Yeah. Really grumpy.
Yeah. Don't bring that guy out.
Yeah. The Back to the Future sets where they just stand there and stare at you. That happened with the Flask quite a few times, before people knew that we were supposed to be crazy live. They'd just be like, what the fuck are these freaks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Still some of our friends that feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one dude that was like, why do you do that? He's like, a professional musician, and I'm like, but do what? And he's like, why do you play like that? Why do you? There's no need. Like, people like your music. I like your music, but you don't have to sweat and scream and jump around like that. And I was like, well, actually, it took me completely aback. I was like, I don't know. Why do I do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But then, then after we parted ways, I was like, because I want to. So fuck you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got to go with your gut. 9 times out of 10, you got to go with your gut, especially when it comes to art, man.
Yeah. It's an artistic expression. Whether it looks like, insanity or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's your thing. Do it,
Yeah,
exactly. It's how the music always took me. I don't know. Just
feeling it. Yeah, you guys, it was such a wild show. I do remember the first time seeing you, because I feel like maybe you had done some shows with the Cubes, and I don't remember if we played or not, but we did a Kansas City show at this upstairs bar, and yeah, it was like there's no stage, you know what I mean, like, but it was like frenetic, like you guys were just, it was like insane, and like those guys, the Cubes guys had warned me. They're like, this band is so crazy. So so they set the bar pretty high. Like, they're like, you're not going to believe it. And then when you started, it's like, I was like, I don't believe it. It was pretty wild, man.
They did great too. They did like their whole set on top of the bar.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Then, well, Brooks not one to be one-upped, Yeah.
I mean? No, he killed it. Yeah. Because we were always like, I don't know if it was necessarily always a thing that we had set out to do, but we're like, we're gonna, if we have to open for anybody, we're gonna make sure that we set the bar high energy wise, and then the whole rest of the show is gonna be that. We didn't think of it as outdoing people necessarily. It's more like we just bring the energy up, set it there, and then it just explodes from then on.
Well, that's
such what happens.
Job. I mean, that's such a job of whoever's opening the show, is like, you really do have, if you want, I mean, you have that sort of I don't know, power. You have that power to like set the tone for the night, or at least kind of like set it where you want it. You know what I mean? Like, you really do. So yeah, I think that's great. You know what I mean?
I think it works. It's counterintuitive to a lot of people. They think that, okay, headliners got to be the best, and you kind of have to work with bands that aren't that great sometimes. That's kind of the thought, but I don't like that. I like every band to be really fucking good.
Of course.
And it makes you work harder as a musician.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And it makes the show better.
Yeah.
That's how I always felt about it.
Yeah.
And people that get bent out of shape about it, it's just funny to me. Yeah. That was that night that Brooke almost fell off the roof.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah. I remember catching him, and I don't remember. I mean, the guy's taller and bigger than I am, for sure. And somehow, yeah, I'm gonna remind him of that. I forgot I saved his life. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to bring that up from time to time.
Yeah, from time to time.
Remember? Yeah, it was a long ways down, and the railing just went.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that it was like, like a miracle, like an angel. That's the only way that I felt like the whole.
This is the kind of stuff we were talking about. It's like this, like that could have gone. That could have been so tragic, and it should have been like that. Should like stick with me. But until you brought it up, totally forgot that.
Yeah,
but it's like, oh yeah, like, Brooke almost just fell 3 stories off the roof of this bar.
Yeah, ass over tea kettle, straight up, head
Yeah.
down. Like that's the way he was going.
And like not, like through no fault of his own, just like casually with a beer, like put his hand on a railing and it just went.
Yeah, it was like a speakeasy. Like he didn't even lean against it. He just put his hand on it, and it had probably been there for 100 years, and was just like, And then you caught him, and I was just like frozen in place and too far. And I remember thinking like, well, like he's gone, he's going upside down. And then it was like a miracle. I don't know. It was magic. Something crazy happened there.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he did not fall over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was a trip down memory lane right there.
Yeah, there were some wild nights. Kansas City was yeah, it got pretty wild there for a couple few years there. Yeah. We had some wild times, man.
Yeah, we took part in that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We always loved coming through Kansas City. It was
always we had a good time, man, for sure.
I mean, to be honest, it seemed like most of what I remember is hanging out in the houses and drinking, and smoking, and playing afterwards.
Yeah, hours. we spent a lot of time there at that house. Yeah. Well, it was just so big. That was sort of like what you were describing earlier. It was like this giant but falling apart house. Yeah, like the band house. I mean, everyone knows the band house. But yeah, we just had people over all the time, man. So that was rad. And I was often gone myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, when we were there, several songwriters living there and people coming over all the time. It was definitely like there was an energy to the place.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess we've all had houses like that that'll stand out in our memories forever. We had one in Redmond, Oregon that was it was on a cliff, the canyon wall right above the skate park. So we would throw shows in there constantly, and then we would go skate all day and all night. And if it rained, there was a solution for that too, because we had built our own half pipe underneath the carport.
Oh, there you go.
We could skate all the time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was some crazy shit too. But well, Adam, so good to see you, man.
It's good to see you too, man. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you hollered at me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to do this. And before we part ways, is there anything like anywhere where I can highlight in the comments, put links for like your music, where to buy your music, or any live stuff you'll be doing, or new things you'll be putting out, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, most of the information is just on the website, adamleeband.com. I've not done really too many live stream things. I'm doing one I'm doing a thing called Hagfest that's this weekend. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but that's this weekend. And really, dude, I've just been like neck deep in these songs, which has been great. But that's like I've been sort of putting off doing anything like that just because I've got 15 or 20 more of these on my list on my wall here. So, awesome. But yeah, if somebody wants to, Adam at adamleeband.com, you can send me an email and I'll write you a song about your dog or your stove or your favorite motorcycle or whatever. That would be rad.
And are you accepting donations for those, or do you have a?
Yeah, it's sort of like an open-ended thing, because my thinking, obviously I wanted to keep some food in the fridge if I could, but also like there's a lot of people that are out of work or like working less. So yeah, people could throw me $5 or $500. It's whatever you want. You know what I mean?
Okay. Awesome.
And I love, I love writing songs. It's been great for me, man. I just like more than anything, it's just keeping me sane. It's just giving me some purpose. Otherwise I'm just going to sit here and eat Cheetos and drink beer all day. So,
yeah, you need a beer and Cheeto, a break from those once in a while to do the song.
Exactly. So now I keep my office hours and I've got my desk and it's a lot of coffee and less Cheetos and beer.
Good. Well, Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, my friend. And
Hey, man, it's been great, man.
I'll put all those I'll put those links to your website and your email so people can write you if they want a song. They'll hit you up and slide you some dough.
Yeah, there you go, bud.
All right, buddy. Well, I'll let you get back to the songwriting, and
All
I'll
right,
think of one to add to your list too.
Yeah. Give me a wacky song title or something. We'll get it figured out.
Cool, man.
All right.
Well, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time, man.
Yeah, sounds good, brother.
Peace, dude.
Later.
I fell in love with a go-go singer underneath that Motor City skyline. Was it true love or was I just